Right, well, good evening, everyone. It is 6:30 on Monday, the 23rd of March, and this is a meeting of the Cabinet. I'd like to welcome everybody who's in the chamber and anyone who's watching online. We've got quite a full agenda tonight, so we will be here, I think, for some little while, going through all of the bits and pieces that are there. What I'm going to do beforehand is just the general housekeeping, just to say if a fire alarm does go off, we're not expecting any drills, so make your way out through the appropriate exits and down the stairs, and we'll all meet on the car park out of the back. If there is a fire alarm, it certainly, as I said, is not a drill, so please do take it seriously. Before we do anything at all, I'm going to go around the table and just ask everyone to introduce themselves, just so that everybody is aware of who's here, etc. And what I'll do tonight, if I may, is we'll start with the officers. Start with you, please.
Good evening, my name's Alison Lee. I'm an environmental health officer. I've started work in February in the environment team in regulatory services.
Thank you.
Hello there, my name's Ian Bartlett. I'm a team leader in the environmental health team, and here today with regard to number 8 on the agenda.
Hello, I'm Anna Farish, Head of Regulatory Services.
Hi, I'm Jamie Toe. I'm the Economic Development Manager.
Gail Bates, Market and Events Manager.
Good evening, Kat Hartley, Director of Communities and Wellbeing.
Ella Newman, Democratic Services Manager.
Liz Elliott, Deputy Chief Executive.
Leah Mickleborough, Head of Democratic Services, Elections and Monitoring Officer.
Good evening, John Richardson, Chief Executive.
Good evening, Clive Mason, Director of Resources and Section 151 Officer.
Sean Brusser, Head of Financial Services.
Kay Aitken, Business and Transformation Manager.
I'm Rebecca Oakley, Head of Communications and Customer Services.
Simon Galton, Portfolio Holder for Planning.
Good evening, Councillor Jim Knight. I'm Portfolio Holder for Finance.
Councillor Darren Woodwest, Portfolio Holder for Climate Change and Neighbourhood Services.
Good evening, Councillor Joe Asher, Portfolio Holder for Culture, Leisure, Economy and Tourism.
Good evening, thank you. Councillor Paul Beadle, Cabinet Member for the Corporate and Wellbeing Portfolio.
And my name is Phil Knowles. I'm the Leader of the Council, and thank you all for introducing yourselves. We'll now move on to the agenda as such. Item 1 is apologies for absence. We don't have any apologies, it's full turnout, so that's perfect. We now move on to item 2, which is declaration of members' interests. Does anybody want to declare anything or advise anything? No? Okay, that's fine. We now move on to item 3, which is information exchange from portfolio holders. So what we'll do tonight is we'll start with you, Simon, and then we'll work our way through, and I'll give mine as the last one.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. Fairly short report tonight, you'll be pleased to know. You probably have to be a recluse to not know what I've been doing on what David Atkinson and the staff in the planning team have been doing for the past 2.5 years. And that came to a head, as you know, last Monday. I think we were all here, most of us were here that night for the key decision taken by the council vote to submit the local plan for public examination and thereby maintain the momentum that the council has currently been trying to deliver in terms of the preparation of this new plan, which, as we all know, is absolute priority, that we get this plan in place in order to regain control over development and bring to a halt speculative, unplanned development without proper infrastructure. And it is interesting to reflect that the council has got to this point of submission in 26 months. That is a major achievement for the staff and everyone who's worked on it. And in fact, there was a lot of criticism in the early days. You'll never do it. The last one took 5 or 6 years. But we did do it. Yes, we resourced up to do it. Yes, we met can't tell you how many meetings we had in order to get to this point. But we did achieve it in terms of the submission. Obviously, there's a long way to go yet. We've still got to go through the examination. You'll know that there will be modifications to it. But as I say, it really was a major achievement. And I think, it's fair to say that the majority of the concern and opposition has come from the major site that we're aware of. But as you recall, Leader, I did try and set out just how much development has taken place and is going to take place in the new plan across the major settlements of the district. And in fact, when you look at that, when you look at what's planned for Lutterworth, for Market Harborough itself, and for my own area, I was quite shocked to see that the amount of development which has taken place and is planned to take place, well in excess of 2,000 houses. So I think that does put it into context that we have not picked on any particular area. It's the amount of growth that we are being required to provide through the planning process, through national requirements that are being imposed on us, which again, you would have to be a recluse not to know that that is the government's priority, to deliver these 1.5 million houses and this growth, and we are part of that, having to do that. Don't think we have any choice in that. We were accused, obviously, of just accepting it. We haven't done that. We've tried to plan for it. We are planning for it properly, and we will now move on to the next stage with the examination. And of course, in parallel with that, we're working on the introduction of the Community Infrastructure Levy, a SIL, still obviously subject to formal decisions by council and approval, but the point there is that we want to put in place a robust mechanism to guide the delivery of strategic infrastructure across the district. And instead of things being piecemeal, we will actually have a tariff-based approach where everyone will know up front exactly what developers have got to pay if that scheme or that area is going to go ahead. But obviously there's some work to go on that. So I've worked with the director and the staff to submit representations on the latest draft national planning policy framework, which proposes a raft more changes to the planning system, and they were submitted by the government deadline of the 10th of March, and we're now waiting publication of the final new NPPF, following the government's analysis of all the responses from across the country. I do have particular concerns about some of the proposals in relation to relaxing rules for development in the countryside, but we have put in quite well argued and strong objections to that, particularly as we are a rural district. Work to physically submit the new local plan following the decision of the council continues apace, and that submission will take place as soon as possible. There's some final checking to do, some final documentation and for accuracy. And when we will await the response from the Planning Inspectorate for the dates for the public hearings. But of course, in the meantime, the Planning Committee remains extremely busy, and again in April it will be necessary to hold 2 meetings across 2 dates due to the amount of business that's going to be on the agenda. The extent to which the Planning Committee remains busy is a constant reminder as to why we do need this new local plan, and to get it in place as soon as possible to manage the speculative development and return the district to a plan-led system and a regulated approach to development delivery, and thereby reduce pressure on the Planning Committee and indeed our staff in development management. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Simon. I just want to say a couple of words of thanks, really. One to you, because I think the amount of work you've put in on this has been incredible, but also to our officers, because they really have burned the midnight oil to get all of this done. And I've asked the Chief Exec to relay back to the officers our thanks for everything and all the extra hours. I think you have hit the nail on the head with one of the comments there, that we really have to protect our district. And it is vitally important that we have a local plan in place, because the amount of speculative development we're getting is horrendous. I mean, 1 or 2 people have said to me it's at unprecedented levels, and they've never seen anything like it. I mean, I know Harbour is a wonderful place to live and a lovely place to bring up your family. We have a lovely district, but we really are becoming inundated. So the sooner we have a local plan in place to protect long-term the whole of the district, the better. So any other member want to make any comment at all on what Simon's had to say? No, you're okay, Simon. Thank you very much. Jim.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So, start with the budget setting, 26-27. The 26-27 budget was approved at Council back in February. It included a 5% reduction in council tax compared to 25-26. The budget itself was amended following an opposition amendment which reduced the budget by 209,000. And there's a paper on tonight's agenda that addresses the impact of these changes. So the 25-26 Q3 outturn. Also on tonight's agenda is the Q3 performance report. And this is showing an increase in the forecast overspend over the noted at Q2, but this is in main due to inflationary pressures and service pressures. In respect of assets, occupancy at the Harbour District Innovation Centre has dropped slightly to 98%, but it's expected to be back to 100% within the next couple of months. And the Harbour Enterprise Centre remains at 100%. Phase 2 works at the Symington building are on the cusp and about to start, so the lift replacement works, at Market Harbour Hall. Tonight, as well as the budget amendments and performances reports being considered by Cabinet, Cabinet is also considering a report in respect of the redevelopment of the pavilion and bowling green in Welland Park. That is my report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone, any questions at all? No? Okay, you've got away lightly as well, Jim. Darren, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So on flooding, we continue to be thankful for no significant flooding events during the last winter season and hope that now spring's here we can breathe easy. Support continues to be available should it be needed. And I think we should be mindful that historically Harbour actually gets most of its flooding during the summer as well, because it's flash flooding that we suffer, so we shouldn't just be complacent. Car parking, the new car parking machines were installed in Market Harbour and Lutterworth and continue to receive positive feedback. Plans for an electric vehicle charging hub in Market Harbour and in rural parts of the district continue to progress well. For environmental services, our fleet of brand new refuse and recycling vehicles has now been delivered following procurement last year and will shortly start to be used. Our community engagement team are working with local schools to run naming competitions, so look out for the brand new names when they hit the road. The procurement is now well underway for a new environmental services contract from April 2027 to cover all aspects, including refuse and recycling collections, green waste collections, trade waste collections, ground maintenance and street cleansing. A number of bidders have been taken through to the next stage of the process, and the next stage, invitation to submit initial tender, has been reached. The new contract is due to be awarded late summer. Public consultation is now underway for a proposed new waste and recycling depot at land north of Market Harbour. The plans can be viewed on the website, where comments can also be made. A planning application is due to be submitted following the consultation. On fly tipping, following the additional provision within the 26-27 budget to increase our fly tipping response service, including a new vehicle and staff resource, preparations are now being made for delivery. On the subject of rubbish and litter, I would like to congratulate the South Leicestershire Litter Wombles on their 7th anniversary, and especially the Market Harbour group, and to thank them for all their hard work. On rewilding, the Rewilding Harbour project is gathering pace, and the steering group and working group meetings are well underway. I would like to provide reassurance that whilst the capital budget allocation has been paused, the project is still very much a priority. The agenda this evening contains a report on the implications of the budget decisions made at the last full council meeting, after which we will be able to provide further details on the plans to hopefully reinstate the budget capital support. That's me. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I've got a few questions, if I might. On the naming of the vehicles, how's that going to be done? Who's going to have the decision on that?
I'll have to defer to Kat, who's running the campaign.
I think that's up for us to decide, really. What we thought would be fun to do was to invite local schools and school children in local schools to take part in a bit of a competition, to make suggestions for names, to get the community involved. So we're just undertaking that at the moment, and then a decision will be made on the sort of final names that will be selected. I don't think we've made any decisions as yet on who's going to have the final say, but yeah, up for any suggestions. So.
Well, the more we can involve the community, I think the better. If we can get them involved in the actual selection of the names. Just another one as well, on the number of tenders or companies going through to the tendering process. You said there were several companies. Do we know the exact number? Am I allowed to ask that? Or is
The
that
last stage was 3. I don't know if you shortlisted any more since then.
I'm not able to answer that question. Sorry.
You're not?
Chair, no.
No, okay. You either, okay. And obviously with the fly tipping, I think I'm really glad we're putting in these extra resources, because it is something that's causing considerable concern. I spent some time with one of our council colleagues over in the west of the district, and quite frankly, the problems that she showed me in and around the ward that she represents were quite concerning. I mean, literally one day they drive down a particular country lane and it's clear, and they go down there on the evening and it's suddenly full of fly tipping. So it is really, really concerning. So thanks for that. Anyone else, any questions, any points they want to put to Darren at all? No? Okay. Joe, it's over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'll run through some of my key actions. So grants, following a very successful first year of the £1 million Community Grant Fund, we are now well into the second year. I am pleased that the 26-27 budget confirms provision for a further £1 million, and this will commence in September. The ward member grants are also being successfully administered, and again there will be a further year of these. Full details of all the projects awarded funding will be published shortly. Information on a range of other available grants can also be found on our website, such as environmental and business grants. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund, the delivery of this remains on track, with many projects funded across the district. After what feels like a long wait and a lot of hard work, the Lutterworth Town Master Plan physical delivery is due to commence shortly. This project will see a much improved town centre and a reconfigured car park. The public consultations for the community master plans are also due to take place soon, which will be a great opportunity to input into future plans for community facilities. The expression of interest for the Town of Culture 2028 has now been drafted and is due to be submitted by the end of the month. This has been guided by a strong new culture partnership made up of local creative and cultural organisations, residents and community groups. We will provide regular updates on progress, and we will all be keeping our fingers crossed that we are shortlisted onto the next stage. Sport and leisure. I am delighted that we will now be delivering a brand new hydrotherapy facility at Lutterworth Leisure Centre, which is now in progress. This follows significant investment into our leisure centres and other new sports provisions, such as the refurbished tennis courts and Welland Park. I'm currently coordinating meetings with partners to discuss a number of other potential projects, which I'll be able to share news of soon, hopefully. This evening's agenda includes a report on the new events provision at Welland Park, which I'm sure everyone will agree is an exciting and much needed project. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Any points you want to raise, Joe? No? Okay. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Leader. I'll start off with the elections and democratic services. The Houghton on the Hill neighbourhood referendum was successfully conducted on the 26th of February, with 398 votes in favour and 42 against, and that had a turnout of 31.5%. Preparations continue for the Market Harborough local poll, which is scheduled for the 30th of April, with poll cards and postal votes being dispatched in March and April respectively. Additionally, the Community Governance Review consultation has seen increased engagement, with 251 responses to date, and as a public event planned for the 30th of March to encourage further participation. The deadline for the consultation is the 13th of April. Democratic Services have experienced a very busy period recently with numerous committee meetings and high public interest in council decisions. The team is also preparing for the annual general meeting in May, where the first alderman and alderwoman of the council will be appointed, with nominations open until the 31st of March. On human resources, recent changes to pensions regulations were announced effective on the 1st of April 2026, which includes new access to the local government pension scheme for elected members starting on the 11th of May this year. Detailed guidance is awaited and a briefing note will be issued to members with instructions on opting in. There's a mandatory safeguarding online training module for 2026 which is available for all officers, and members are encouraged to also undertake this vital training through the Council's Learning Matters platform. Our contact centre and customer services, there's a new self-service contact point pilot launching later this week on the ground floor of the Symington building. This facility will include phone and computer kiosks to provide additional access to council services alongside existing contact methods. Staff will assist customers in using the kiosks, which will enable activities such as making payments for council tax and lifeline invoices, browsing the council website and accessing frequently requested forms. The pilot aims to gather data on usage and customer needs to inform future service development. And the area will be in operation from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. Monday to Fridays. Wellbeing and community partnerships. Young people, there's been collaborations with parishes and organisations underway to develop new youth clubs with consultations in Scraptoft and Houghton, and there's been funding secured to run clubs through Young Leicestershire for 1 year. The Youth Council has contributed to revising the Youth Opportunity Plan to create a new young people strategy that reflects council priorities and youth interests. They are also working with the Economic Development Team on a district-wide work experience project and have successfully launched a government-funded Finance Champions programme to teach financial literacy to Year 10 students. The Council also participated in a Youth Voice event discussing migration, the National Youth Strategy and lowering the voting age to 16. A Your Vote Week session was held to promote democratic participation, and collaboration with Speak Out magazine includes an update article and development of a new logo. And then finally, on the housing, our housing team continues to face high demand. They've processed 81 new homeless applications this month. The council's own temporary accommodation portfolio has increased by 2 properties, a 1-bedroom flat in Medbourne and a 3-bedroom house in Desborough. And temporary accommodation usage is at a record high, with approximately 60 households housed at any one time, and 1,610 nights of temporary accommodation were provided this month, of which just over a quarter were in council-owned and leased properties. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, well, I think we've certainly made some incredible moves forward with the provision on the housing for those who need our help. I know that I was talking to Councillor Knight about it the other day. It's certainly a huge area of improvement since we took office just 3 years ago. You may want to make some comment on that, Jim.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, I just think it's a great achievement. You're right. We were when we took office, it was, I think there were 8 properties available to us, and only 4 of those were in service. And I believe up over 19 properties available to us now for temporary accommodation, and I think that's a great achievement, Leader.
It certainly is. And the other reference which I just wanted to touch on before I open the floor to anyone else is that I think this is an important step forward on these community kiosks downstairs. I know it's a pilot scheme, and I know there's work to be done and a lot of analysis to be done once it's actually up and working. But I think it's certainly something that's going to provide us with some very interesting background and some opportunities to give additional services and ease of use to a lot of members of the community. Does anyone want to come in and make any comments at all? Darren, please, yes.
I'd just like to commend the work in the youth area as well. So, as you know, we've formed the Youth Council. It's something I'm very passionate about, and it's good to see that's being driven forwards. Thank you.
Fantastic. Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you for that. Right, I'll now give the leader's statement, and I'll apologise for any duplication. And certainly my statement's a little bit longer than everybody else's, but I'm sure you'll let me indulge me this evening. Well, obviously on the Town of Culture 2028 proposal, you know, we've heard already about our involvement in it, and I think it's encouraging to hear the thought that's gone behind the title, which is the Grand Union, which takes its name and spirit from our canal heritage. It presents a highly compelling narrative that frames Market Harborough as the historic meeting place of the Midlands. We're proudly positioning the town as the high-quality testing ground for a new model of culture-led regeneration. The exposition of interest has gone in, or is about to go in, and outlines a programme designed to tackle the interlinked challenges of rural isolation among older residents and a serious youth drain out of the district. Crucially, this draft has been shaped by our partners to ensure it is rooted in genuine community ambition. Delivery will be led through a powerful cross-sector partnership. Established networks form the foundation of this partnership. Creative Harborough, representing our grassroots cultural sector, and the Harbs Collective alongside the Market Harborough Chamber of Trade, representing our independent businesses. This collaborative model brings together local government, heritage groups and the business community. It clearly demonstrates to the assessors that we have the governance, partnership and community backing required to deliver an ambitious, inclusive and sustainable cultural programme, and I wish it every success when it is submitted later this week. I want to touch on now on the alleged oil dumping near Little Bowden. I want to assure residents, or reassure residents, that the council was made aware of the alleged oil dumping in Little Bowden at the end of last week. The responsible body is the Environment Agency, and they are continuing to investigate and clear up the material. The council understands that there have been approximately 40 tonnes of oil removed so far, which was allegedly there for some days and has been poured out down a drain in some way. But obviously we have to wait to get the actual information correct from the Environment Agency. And I also understand that the latest figure that we're having indicated to us is substantially increased on that 40 tonnes. So again, rather than speculate, we will wait to hear the final figure, but I want to commend those who are actually working up there to try and get this cleared up. It is not appropriate to comment further at this stage whilst investigations are going on, but we have offered our assistance if required. On the subject of local government reorganisation, the consultation period closes on Thursday, March the 26th, so 3 days to go. I've been advised that the government has received over 5,000 responses to date, which is a significant amount, and more than most, if not, well, if you look at other areas, ours is substantially ahead of the game. I'll be sending in our council's response to support of North City South proposal, as agreed by Cabinet in November last year, and that will go in very shortly. It would not be right of me to finish without mentioning the calling of an extraordinary meeting of the Council by the opposition to replace me as leader and the coalition from administration in what is simply a power grab. Firstly, I would like to put on record and put it straight on a couple of points. The administration has only lost part of one vote in over 3 years, and that was a budget amendment for 26-27. So I don't think it's fair to say that we are losing votes left, right and centre. I think accuracy is important in these type of things. Secondly, I can assure the opposition we are not tired, and if anything, we are more energised than ever and focused on delivering a significant amount of community benefit in line with our commitment to give back, put things right and invest in our communities. Finally, I would like to ask residents to judge us on our delivery over the past 3 years, which I can summarise as follows. Reduced council tax to less than when we came into power. Froze green bin charges every year. froze car park charges every year, initiated a community grant scheme giving access to £4 million worth of funds for every parish area, but waited to where housing growth is being delivered. Invested approximately £6 million into our leisure centres. Invested in a range of assets, including the Symington building. We've also invested in Wallen Park, Watkins Pavilion, etc. Purchased our own waste fleet for the first time. Purchased land for our own depot to ensure we get the best value from the procuring of our refuse, street cleaning and ground maintenance service. Turned over 133 acres into a nature recovery and rewilding scheme, which has led to an opportunity of a national significance being created within this district, with over 500 acres around Market Harborough and over 500 acres coming forward in Lutterworth. Investing in Lutterworth Town Centre Marketplace. Created a friendship park and 2 tiny forests. Moved customer service from analogue to digital in our Lifeline services. Developed a ward member grants programme. Installed solar panels on the Innovation Centre and leisure centres. Refurbished our valued market hall. Tripled our temporary accommodation housing stock, which we touched on earlier. Significant achievement. Giving people in need a better quality of life when most in need, but also saving significant funds. Invested in our planning officers to create a strategic growth team, but also investing in planning enforcement too. I could go on, but this is a track record to be proud of. Then I don't, and if it isn't, well, I really don't know what is, because I think this is something that, as a coalition, we should be extremely proud of, very happy, and to underline to anyone who's listening that we have ambitions of bringing even more to the table in the coming months and years. And I'm quite happy to take any questions or any comments from any member of the Cabinet. Anybody want to say anything? Darren?
I would just like to support you in those comments. I think the change in the tone of our administration has been palpable, and most people fully admire us for what we're delivering. So thank you to the officers for your extreme hard work, because we have created quite a workload for you. So thank you.
Anybody else? Jim?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I definitely commend everything that you've just read out there, and that we've put so much back into communities, and I think we've delivered for the communities, which is what we set out to do all along. And I really am very proud of the work that we and the officers have put into all of the commitments that we've endeavoured to produce for the community.
Anybody else? Joe? Yes, please.
Yeah, just to echo those comments and to say the feedback I get from residents, you know, all over the district, not just in Market Harborough Town Centre, but Lutterworth and the villages as well, that they finally feel like more is being spent in their areas, and they're actually getting support from the council, whereas before they felt neglected, and like it was very Harborough centric, or this area of town, and that, you know, that's just goes to show that we have made a difference, and what we've delivered is extraordinary, really, what we've done. So yeah, I'm very proud of what we've achieved, and I think it would be nice if we can carry on.
Thanks, Joe. Anybody else want to say anything at all? Okay, well, I think we'll move on from that. Apologies for the length of my report, but I also would like to add my thanks to the comments that Dan's just said to our officers, because we know we've loaded you out with work, and I'm sure you've enjoyed it and continue to enjoy it, and look forward to even more to come. Okay, questions to the Cabinet, item 4. As far as I know, there are no questions to the Cabinet. True? No?
There's none.
There's none.
I did a double negative there.
You did. That's what threw me. Now, I've got the draft minutes of the Cabinet of the 2nd of the 3rd, 26, which are pages 3 to 17 of the document. Has everybody had the opportunity to look at it? Everybody happy? Any comments you want to make, please? No? Would somebody like to move them?
Happy to move.
Moved by Councillor Jim Knight. Is there a seconder? Councillor Darren Woodywis. All those in favour? Anyone against? That is carried. I'll just sign them. Thank you, that's to you, Leah. Thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to item 6, which is the impact of the budget amendments approved by Council on the 23rd of February, which are on pages 18 to, 18 to, 42. Thanks for that, Joe. So we'll move on to that now. Obviously, there's quite a lot in here, which I think we do need to be aware of. And I think that probably the best way to do it before we bring you in, Jim, if I can just make one or two points. I think if you turn to page 20, and particularly 3.2, 3.3, on 3.2, it's very clearly indicating there the financial situation where 209,000, 236,000 and 229,000 have been removed. That is in fact the rewilding money. I know there are those who constantly keep saying, but we were only trying to postpone it. Well, they didn't postpone it, they took the money out. And now we're having to look to put the money back in and to protect a scheme which I think we'll all agree has got the backing of a huge percentage of the district, particularly now that we're looking at something in excess of 1,000 acres. Under little d, it refers to the earmark reserved being called the investment and has been renamed to the budget amendment reserve pending the business cases. So we have the basic documents that went out. Again, we went through the situation of people saying they hadn't got the document and then having to acknowledge afterwards that they had indeed had it the week before. So again, we've protected there and we've covered off what needs to be done. Under 3.3, there is that members need to be aware there is a wish to implement the council approved amendments as it is understood to be intended, that in respect of the street cleaning, the approved budget amendment is insufficient. The numbers that were put forward are insufficient. They don't add up. And therefore, commentary is noted below that in respect of the revenue, the approved budget amendment was £35,000, but unfortunately this is 10,000 under the resourced, as the driver is 45,000. And it then from there goes on, where the amendment put forward a figure of 40,000 for a new street sweeping vehicle, and the cost of that vehicle is somewhere in the region of 175,000. So again, the figures that were put forward simply didn't add up. There were 135,000 out. So we're faced with a situation on those where we have to try and act. I'm sure Jim will have some commentary on those. And as it says under 3.3.2, the members should note that it's preferred choice to provide additional resource for street cleaning in the capacity. Additional resources will have to be requested from council. So we have to put in a mechanism now to go back and get them approved, because it wasn't as simple as putting a document on the table and saying that's what we want. If the document doesn't add up, it has implications for the way that you have to deliver it. And very simply, the document that was put on the table was put on at the 11th hour and 59 minutes. There was no scrutiny. There was little opportunity to check it. And obviously, it has repercussions. The 3.4 talks in there about the need for an amendment to agree to the budget. And 3.5 talks about good governance, which again, obviously, is something that we need to look at very closely. And under 3.5 little 2, we are putting in there a very important phrase, which I'm sure we'll all remember from earlier discussions. Scrutiny is invited to add these to their work programme for the coming year. I have to apologise to the two chairs of the scrutiny panels, because to put a lot of this through, we are going to need them to agree to take on the workload and to get this put into their work programme for consideration and comment. But I'm sure that they will take it on and do their very best with it. And there's also commentary under little 3 about a recommendation to Council for funding is made by Cabinet, which again is something we will have to address. So the expected approved budget amendments that were referred to in scrutiny to be prioritised and planned via the joint scrutiny work planning meeting on April the 20th. I think that date might be wrong.
23rd.
That should, yeah, Leah's just corrected, it should be the 23rd. Is if you look at it on the revenue side of it, the items that we are looking at there that have got to be considered: CCTV, rewilding, street cleaning, flooding, bulky waste collection, which is interesting in its own right, because again we are deeply concerned that we've found ourselves now in a position where the workload that can bring could well outstrip the ability to deliver on people's expectations, because that's quite a dramatic addition that was made, and obviously we need to look at that. There's neighbourhood planning, grant towards members, and then on capital there's the hospitality grants, rewilding, street cleaning and the inclusive play equipment. I could certainly go on at length about this, as you can probably gather, but I simply think the way that I would sum it up is I would like to express my thanks in advance to scrutiny, because you've got an awful lot to consider, and I would say it's a great pity that this was put on the table at the 11th hour and 59 minutes without actually being analysed, without anyone having the opportunity to scrutinise it, and we've now ended up in a position where we're going to have to do an awful lot of work to actually deliver what has been put through here. So that's my opening comments. I apologise, Jim, I know it's your particular item, but I'll hand it over to you now for additional comments, please.
Thank you, Leader. You've pretty much covered everything I've got written down. But yeah, absolutely, as you've outlined, the amendments deliver 209,000 savings in the year 26-27, and that is followed by 27,000 27-28 before shifting to a very small 7,000 cost. Now, whilst all these changes, they add to our reserves by 209,000, the headline figure does mask the delivery challenges. The most significant, as you've already pointed to, the street cleansing, where we're short 10,000, and on the staffing side, and 135 on the capital. So several other areas need scrutiny input now. Business cases, CCTV, rewilding, flooding, bulky waste, neighbourhood planning, all of ward member grants, all of this. These need amendments. So really, it really just leaves me to say that the overall amendments deliver a very modest financial saving, but they create substantial programme of follow-up work. So we now have to ensure that scrutiny has the space and to assess each proposal, and that we as a Cabinet remain disciplined in delivering within the revised envelope set by Council. So I can't really add a lot more than that. As you say, you've covered it. It really is a situation where I'd say most, if not all, the amendments that have been put forward were done so in haste, I believe, created a huge amount of work for very, very little gain.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make any comments at all? Simon?
Chair, I think paragraph 4.2 and 4.3 are quite important and very interesting to read the detail of that, exactly the role of the Council and the role of the Cabinet in relation to decisions on operational delivery and how the Cabinet actually delivers the services. But 4.3 does seem to suggest that if the budgetary envelope if it's not sufficient to deliver what Council has said, then we would have to go back to full Council. Could the officers just comment a bit further on that then? So the intention would be that after it's gone to scrutiny, then it would come back here, is that right? And then if there were further, if there were things that did need to implement, but unfortunately we couldn't do that because there simply isn't enough resource to do what was required, we'd have to go back to council, and that would require what, an amendment to the budget? Just wanted to understand that.
I think Clive might have the answer.
Through you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, if we take the example of the street cleansing, so if it goes to the proposal will go to scrutiny, and scrutiny will say, well, yes, we think it's a good idea, hypothetically speaking, sorry, and you'll need an extra £10,000 to do that. There isn't that £10,000 in the base budget to do that. You could via from somewhere else if you wanted to, but I shouldn't think you'd want to reduce a priority somewhere else to fund this. So you would have to then recommend to council to release an additional £10,000 of reserves to fund that additional budget.
So what if it's ongoing? Because, I mean, you're not just going to operate a street sweeper for a year, are you? You wouldn't, why would you do that? You wouldn't buy it and then just make funding.
Yeah, well, that would be in the recommendation, that this would go back into the base budget. And there are two ways you could do it. You could ask for a permanent adjustment, but really speaking, only council can do that at budget setting. So you would ask for £10,000 this year with a commitment for it to go forward as a budget proposal for next year.
Okay, I've understood that. Thank you now.
Thanks, Simon. Jim?
And then, would that money then come from reserves? Is that correct?
Through you, Chair. Yep, that's literally where it would come from.
So the modest savings of 209,000 would all be wiped out, I take it?
As I say, I think we've got the difficult situation of politely trying to say that maybe this needed a little bit more thought before these amendments were put on the table, because I think it's the old phrase, do in haste and repent at leisure. And that certainly is what we've landed here, because the workload, the cost and the implications going forward are considerable. Anybody else want to come in and comment at all? Simon?
No, happy to move the report, Chair.
Okay. Jim, do you want to second it?
I certainly would. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just check. The officers want to make any more comments at all on this? Okay, well, with apologies to our colleagues on scrutiny for the additional workload we're passing to them, and obviously looking forward to how we finally manage to resolve this. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Anyone against? That is carried. We now move on to the next item, which is on page 43, which is the performance report, financial outturn and corporate quarter 3 year ending 31st of March. Jim, do you want to pick up on this?
Yes, so Chair, this is the combined financial and corporate performance report, sets out the forecast financial position outturn for the year ending 31st of March 2026 for revenue and capital, and covers performance monitoring of the refreshed corporate plan for quarter 3, October to December 2025. Financial performance, the revenue is forecast to overspend by 264k, a variance of 1.6% to the approved budget. Capital is forecast to slip 12.64 million, a variance of 52% to the approved budget. I don't feel I need to add any more to that at this time. If Clive would like to comment at all, or if any other else.
So, Clive, do you want to come in at all?
Through Chair, I've got nothing more to say. I mean, really, I mean, unless there's any detail, then Sean could pick that up. But we are facing into those headwinds that have started to grow out of quarter 2. And there is a mix of inflationary pressure and some increased costs directly within services. I mean, the classic example is legal. I mean, they've got no staff. So to provide a service, they've got to have interims, and they cost a lot of money, you know. But some of the items have also been addressed as part of 26 budget setting. So there is some significant items gone in there, such as to do with housing benefits, remodelling of the costs for waste and so on. So hopefully when we go into 26, 27, some of those costs should be more neutralised, but we never anticipated what's been going on in the Middle East. Since the budget has been set, so we face into even probably harder headwinds going into 26, 27 than we experienced in 25, 26. So it's difficult. It's going to be difficult, but there's not much more to say on that. I mean, it's probably worth to comment on the capital programme as well. But you will note that the capital programme, it looks considerably underspent at this point in time. But that's because a number of those projects, some have slipped, but they've slipped because of just literally the profile of the procurement. So some of the spend like to do with the work of the TSB and the depot, and some of they've been reprofiled, and a lot of that will go to next year. Does it mean that the money's lost? It's just means it's delayed, and that's that. There was some commentary from scrutiny last week. They were quite conscious around the overspend and think it should be tightly controlled. Well, we are. That's why we report it openly. I'm sure if there were things in there that were concerning Cabinet from it seems a bit flippant point of view, rather than it's proper pressure or stuff, you'll be addressing that. But through our regular meetings, Councillor Knight, we address these issues. It was a good challenge, and it was good to have the report to go to scrutiny before Cabinet, so those comments could come forward. So, on the finance side, nothing really more to add. Really, thanks.
Thank you very much, Clive. Simon.
Yes, Chair. Clive touched on comments at scrutiny on this last Thursday, which, as you know, I was standing in for you, and yes, there was some criticism. Unfortunately, Clive was suffering from the same I was the previous weekend, so he probably wasn't on his top performance. No criticism, obviously, just when you're under the weather. But I think two key things need to be made. It's 1.6% of the total budget. It is very, very small, even with that. Obviously, if we could budget at 0.0, fine, but it's not a large amount in terms of the percentage of overall expenditure. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it's clear things are moving on all the time. Earlier, mention was made of one of the delays is obviously the vehicle acquisition, and we're not going to be paying for these until we get them. Well, it was said earlier tonight that, I think it was by Darren, that a number of the vehicles have now been delivered and arrived. So no doubt we'll be invoiced and be paying for them fairly shortly. So it's a moving picture in relation to the underspends. And as Clive said, it's not that those projects are not going to go ahead. It's a phasing issue. It's about when delivery actually occurs. So. Yes, probably I could have been had a bit more information, but it's a changing picture that could have been given. But in overall terms, I think we should note that at 1.6%, it is a very small amount, and as has been said, it's kept under review.
Thank you, Leah. Do you want to come?
Yeah. Thank you, Leader. I think. It's worth touching a little bit more on what's mentioned about the Scrutiny Committee, because in the past, the Scrutiny Committee have looked at our performance and finance information after Cabinet, which sort of defeats the effectiveness and the point of the scrutiny process. So this was the first time where it went scrutiny first, and we're hoping that for future meetings, what we'll have is a brief summary of what scrutiny discussed to come to you with. But just to flag up the points they made, and I appreciate Clive and Jim, you've touched on, Clive and Simon, you've touched on a couple of these things. So they did highlight there's been an overspend of £264,000, which isn't significant, but underlying that is additional interest rate income. And obviously, if interest rates change and aren't as positive towards the council's budget, that could mean a higher overspend if the overspend was to carry on. They noted that in terms of that overspend. There's quite a heavy reliance on locums and agency staff in some particular areas of the council. Sean and Clive addressed some of the ways the finance team are addressing that, and in terms of the legal team, we have recruited for a head of legal position who'll start to then recruit to their permanent team as well. So we're expecting in the long term that will be addressed. There's discussion around temporary accommodation. There's been a rise in cost, but you're working to address that through the purchasing of properties to support temporary accommodation. There was some concern about staffing levels in car parks and enforcement, but they requested to look at that in a bit more depth. And I think that is essentially all of the points they raised on in terms of the budget.
Can I just come back on that particular one in relation to the enforcement, because I should have been clearer on this one. It was largely about on-street, about enforcement of on-street. Now, please Kat's here, because I didn't want to say something I couldn't back up, but my understanding is that we are directed by the Highway Authority in relation to what we enforce on street. So we don't just go along and think, well, we'll go and enforce in Lutterworth or Kibworth or wherever it is. We are actually told where to go and enforce, and there's a plan that we work to. So perhaps Kat could just confirm that, because there was some criticism particularly about on street. It was acknowledged that we are under the number of staff that we would normally have, the quota of staff, but I think we've got some recruitment difficulties. Yes, if we could just make that point quite clearly, that our staff have to go where they're directed to on street.
Can you just put that on record, Kat, if you don't mind?
I can, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, you are broadly correct. There's two elements to our parking service. One is the enforcement within what I'd call the sort of Harbour District Council bits, so that's generally sort of our car parks, and then the on-street car parking, which is a service level agreement. Yes, with a service level agreement with Leicestershire County Council. As it happens, we do actually have our absolute resident car parking expert here. So Anna's been involved in the car parking partnership for many, many years, so she'll be more than happy to provide more detail if you need it. But I think essentially what you've set out is correct, but I don't know if you got anything you wanted to add, Anna.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. Yeah, you're correct. So on-street car parking, which is essentially the parking, so double yellow lines, parking bays on the street, they are the responsibility of the Highways Authority, so the County Council. The council-owned car parks are the ones where we can direct the officers. Anything else has to go through the county.
I think it would be appropriate if we ensured that message went back to scrutiny, that we have looked in more detail at this, and we can confirm.
They've asked for a report in more detail, Chair, so no doubt we can bring that out in the report,
great,
set out how that agreement we have with them works.
Brilliant.
But I just mentioned, because there was an attempt at county to centralise the service back into county, and that was rejected. One of the arguments was, what on earth would the point of that doing that when there's 18 months, 2 years left before local government? You just get a centralised service up and running and recruit the staff, and then you'd be abolished.
Exactly. I think it's important that report will include that. I think the one thing I will say is that I think we can have confidence that these matters are constantly under review, and I know that our Director of Finance, to use a general term, is monitoring it all the time, and obviously that detail will be fed back through to the appropriate portfolio holder on the finance, which obviously Councillor Knight. And I think it's always it's important to have good scrutiny. There was a phrase used a long time ago about it being a critical friend, and I think that's absolutely what it is, a critical friend, and it's a very important critical friend, so that we can monitor how the council are being managed and how we're moving forward. But equally, I think it's a two-way street, and when anything like this comes up, it's very important that we feed back to scrutiny that we have looked at it, and to correct any misunderstandings, so that we're all very much on the same page. So if we can make sure that that's included, I'd appreciate it. Anybody else, any comments at all? I think what we're asked to do on this is to consider the comments and the contents of the report. You don't seem to have to adopt it in any way.
No, it's purely for any comments, and obviously if as a committee you feel you need to make any formal recommendations, you can.
Okay, anybody want to make any formal recommendations, or are we just happy to say that it has been discussed and noted? Jim?
Yes, if we can just say it's discussed and noted, Chair. Or
thank you very much.
That needs moving. I'm happy to move it.
Okay. We now move on to page 79, which is key activities, which is Paul, and this is all about the council's corporate vision and lots of other interesting stuff. I'm going to leave this entirely to you, Paul, to put your presentation forward. So over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this report outlines the refreshed corporate plan and the community wellbeing plan of the council. It's emphasising the community engagement, sustainable development, health, environment, economy and organisational effectiveness. The corporate plan covers a full range of the council's responsibilities and sets out the council's ambitions for the district and helps focus the council's efforts and resources on the identified priorities. There's no intention of revisiting the corporate plan again for the duration of this administration, as it now sets out the ambition and priorities for the medium term. However, the delivery plans on how to achieve those ambitions and priorities are required to be approved by Cabinet. So that's like the roadmap of what we do, why we do it, how it's funded. The development of the delivery plans took into consideration the impact that LGR will have on the council, its communities and its place. However, as the council will remain a sovereign authority for the near future, delivery against our corporate aims and visions still needs to be completed, and the council still needs to deliver services for our communities based on these. It's a very detailed report. Some of that detail in here explains about the annual delivery plan, how it's created from the following, from the council vision and priorities. So we aim to build a future-ready communities by promoting community leadership, health and well-being, environmental sustainability and a prosperous local economy. More of that detail is in Appendix 1 of the report. The community wellbeing plan pillars, there's 5 pillars that were agreed by Cabinet in response to the peer challenge recommendation to more explicitly identify communities within the corporate plan. And budget themes, the council budget supports practical improvements and strategic investments under the themes of giving back, putting right and investing in the future, such as the council tax reduction and freezing certain fees to aid residents. The key activities are focused around the place and community initiatives, including funding for the local plan review, community asset transfers, development of a place shaping strategy, and investments in community assets such as parks, heritage buildings and waste management facilities. Healthy Lives focus, the council plans to enhance support for vulnerable residents, increase affordable housing through partnerships and policy refreshes, and expand temporary accommodation capacity to improve stability and well-being. Environment and sustainability actions, implementation of a food waste service, rewilding and biodiversity enhancements, play area improvements and increased resource to tackle fly tipping and environmental crime are priorities. Youth involvement in environmental projects is also encouraged. Economic development and workforce, the council supports local businesses through an inward investment resource, promotes workforce well-being, leadership development and prepares for local government reorganisation with dedicated resources and training. The plan also recognises the change in local government landscape with LGR considerations. A £1 million reserve supports the council's transition related to LGR, including governance reviews and capacity building to ensure service continuity and effective change management. And finally, on performance monitoring, progress on delivery plans will be tracked through a governance framework with quarterly Cabinet reports and an annual comprehensive review to ensure accountability and alignment with strategic goals.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone, any comments at all? You want to come in? No? Any officer input? No, I think this is a really detailed report, and you've certainly touched on a great deal of the important things. I think, as you say, particularly important that we noted that under 3.6, we have got the 5 pillars of community wellbeing, which is something on which we've based so much of the programme, and we continue to do. Also, the budget themes are very clearly laid out there, and it's denoted about the 5% reduction in council tax, which is giving back to the communities and investing in our communities. And I think it's been quite refreshing to hear the comments of people when the council tax bill has landed. They've been really, pleased to see that we've made that move. It's all about putting money into our place and our communities with pride and trying to develop that for the future. Thank you for that. If anybody wants to make any comments, please do. If not, we will take a vote on it. Right, okay. So let me just turn back to the recommendation. The recommendation that the Cabinet approve the approach and actions outlined in the report to deliver the corporate plan and community wellbeing plan for 2026-27 through the annual delivery plan. Somebody like to move that? Paul, thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Joe. There are no more comments. All those in favour? Anyone against? That is carried. We now move on to page 102, which is the Biodiversity Duty Environment Act 2021, the first statutory report, and that falls under Darren and Simon. So I don't know which one of you, Simon, do you want to lead off?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So yes, as you've said, this is the first report that we are receiving, probably the only one we'll receive, on the biodiversity duty statement, and we're required under the section 40 of the NERA to have this report every year and to have regard in exercising our functions as far as is consistent to the proper exercise of those functions to conserving biodiversity. So the report sets out what we've been doing. Of course, just to remind members that there is a mandatory requirement now for biodiversity net gain, requiring 10% gain in large developments. It can be done on site or it can be done off site through credits, and that is done through the planning process. But I think the report is interesting in the things that we have done. If you look at page 119, progress so far sets out a number of areas, and it's often where we're doing something else, but we are, in doing that, we're making a contribution to biodiversity improvement. And there's just a few examples to give to members, and that would obviously include, you'll be pleased to know, LEADER, the work with the Wildlife Trust on nature recovery that we're doing, and then the community environmental grants that have been put in place, and they have definitely improved biodiversity across the district. And then the Green Living Leicestershire Partnership, we've worked on Sustainability Parish Toolkit. I've mentioned that biodiversity is dealt with obviously through planning applications. It's also relevant to our new open space strategy that we're bringing forward, and we'll come forward to Cabinet shortly. We've done 2 tiny forests in the district, and hope there'll be more of those. We've done planted 600 trees to bring the woodland environment into the urban area. And we've worked in partnership in a tree planting, natural flood management and other biodiversity improvements being delivered with Smeaton Westerby on the local nature project there. And we've given away 8,000 native fruit trees away to residents and communities. You remember that, yes, Chairman, that we've done. And then we've got 2 air quality management areas that are active. I hope that's right. Is Lutterworth still active?
No, I believe
I think that perhaps needs to be updated.
It's not
actually. It's Kibworth that now the active air quality management area.
The monitors are in place, but it's
okay.
It's not.
So perhaps we just need to revise that in terms of the difference between active management and monitoring, which we can
take
update
that back to David. I'll assure you.
Yeah. But they've been below the threshold for 2 years. so the work to improve traffic flow there. So as you can see, it's often it's things that we're doing in day-to-day work, or because we brought a project forward, they make a contribution to enhancing biodiversity. But there's an interesting list there going forward. As I say, I believe this will be the only report we'll do, because it will fall to whoever comes after us to do this further. But it's a very important area of work, and I think it's particularly important, again, going back to things we talked earlier about the local plan, on some of these large sites that are going to come forward, that we do our best to ensure that there is significant biodiversity net gain on those sites as they're developed. Thank you, Chair.
I think it's an important thing just to add to this is that I remember when we did those 8,000 fruit trees, that we'd actually had quite a number of people coming up, project groups taking away sort of 20 and 30 of them to actually plant them. So that, you know, there's some tiny orchards that have sort of sprung up across the district because of people's enthusiasm to actually get involved with that project. So it was a tremendous success, and I think it was something we should be, you know, really pleased about. Darren, do you want to come in?
Yes, I didn't know Simon was going to go first, but yeah, that's great.
Sorry about that.
I'd really like to say it's not many councils are having a positive biodiversity effect, and obviously with our rewilding scheme and the other things we're doing, I think we're going to leave a very good kind of like a present for the future generations to enjoy. So I'd just like to say we're leaving on a positive note.
Yeah, you know, as I say, it's not what this council can achieve in the next 18 months. We know that central government will make decisions when the brakes are suddenly put on, and I don't think that's far away. I think with a matter of a few months before the decision is taken to actually say that's it, you know, that's the order put down, and we'll have to live with whatever happens then in Westminster. But I think that it will be the future generations that will judge, hopefully positively, what we as a district council have collectively provided, because I think this is one of the things with this rewilding scheme, and I know there are one or two on the council who are not fans of it and have alternative uses they'd like to put the land to, and obviously we live in a democracy, so they're very welcome to their opinion. I don't agree with it, because if I did, we'd both be wrong. So I think as far as I'm concerned, you know, I think it's a great investment, but it's what we leave for future generations, and future generations hopefully will look and see all of this and say, well, I don't know who had anything to do with it, but there aren't, you know, there's some tremendous tree cover within the whole of this district. So, fingers crossed. Right. Anybody else want to come in at all before I bring the officers in? No. Right. Any officers want to comment? No. Everybody happy then? Right. Okay. Well, does somebody want to move this? Darren? Yeah. Darren's moved it. Somebody want to second it? Simon? We'll go in reverse order this time. So if no one else wants to comment, and there's no officer comment, we'll go all those in favour. Anyone against? That is carried. We now move on to page 124, which is the governance arrangements for Environmental Services Depot infrastructure project. And I know Helen's the project officer and Kat the director of this, and obviously the climate change and neighbourhood services comes under you, Darren. Do you want to lead off on this? Then we'll bring the officers in.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we've already referred to the rewilding site, but within that bounds we have plans for a depot. Some plans have been drafted, and as we've also already mentioned, they're going to consultation. They'll be going forward for planning shortly. This is for delegation to the Section 151 officer to do the procurement for the main contractor for the construction of the site. And really, there's nothing much more I can say, so I'll defer to Kat for any more details.
Thank you, Darren. Kat.
Thank you, Councillor Woody-West. Yeah, this report really is in place to seek the governance arrangements and the delegation to enable us to progress with a project which we are moving forward within some very, very tight timescales. So just to provide an update in terms of where we are as a bit of background context, we have submitted a pre-application advice request to Leicestershire County Council some months ago now for the delivery of a new waste and recycling facility in this location, and that was we received the response back and that was positive, and we're now progressing a planning application. Very, very recently, so only on Friday of last week, we launched a public consultation on the plans. So that is live on our website, and that is really important to ensure that when we do press submit on the planning application itself, that we can ensure that we've got the views of the community incorporated within that. So that's now live, and that will be open for about 3 weeks, and then we'll have a look at the comments from that. But it's really important that we're very transparent in what we're doing at every step of the way for our residents. I'm not going to go back over the reasons why we're taking this project forward. I think that's relatively well rehearsed from previous meetings, and it's also set out in the report. But as Councillor Woodywis has said, that the recommendations really are there, enable us to move forward. So they relate to seeking approval to commence the procurement for a main contractor for the delivery of the construction works, and then seeking delegation for the Section 151 officer in consultation with myself and the portfolio holders to negotiate ward, enter and so on, and the arrangements to enable us to take the contracts forward. And this is really critical, and we are going to need to implement sufficient progress to enable us to deliver a service from April 2027 in that location. And as I'm sure members will be aware, these things take time. The planning process itself can often be relatively lengthy, and then we also have procurement to be progressed in parallel with that. So I'm sure Councillor Woodywis would join me in saying that we'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, I think one of the important things is that this is going to bring a considerable number of benefits to the whole of the district, and one of them is the financial benefits, because once we've got that depot in place, the positive impact that has on the overall contract will feed back in, and I think it's fairly well documented that we're going to be saving some fairly substantial money, which means within a period of about 7 years or so, it's going to mean that this whole scheme is virtually paid for itself, and I think that's a good governance. It's also a good practice, and I think it's a clear indication that we've done the right thing. We're providing everything within that, and it's acting as a catalyst for much, much more. So anybody else want to come in and make any comments at all? No? Okay. Any other officer want to comment at all? No? Right. Well, somebody like to move it?
Happy to move it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Darren. So it's moved by Councillor Woodywis. Is there a seconder? Councillor Jim Knight. Just double check again. Anybody else want to say anything? No? Okay. All those in favour? Anyone against? That is carried. We now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is page 129, which is the contract for customer services contact centre system, which I think is you, Paul.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you, Leader. Yes, this report's in regard to a contract award for a software that's provided by a company called TalkDesk. It's used by our contact centre. They currently use it. They have been using it for the last 4 years. It was initially awarded under a 2-year contract. It was then extended for a further 2 separate 12-month extensions. So this report's recommending that we extend it for a further 27 months. This takes us to beyond the completion of LGR, rather than come back each for the next 2 years. So we just do it in one go for 27 months. And that will take us up till August 2028.
Okay. Anything else you want to add at all? I think everything keeps pivoting around local government reorganisation, sadly, but we are where we are. Okay. Does any officer want to come in and make any comment at all? Darren, please.
I was just checking that's just over 6 years, isn't it? So that comes in okay in procurement rules. Yeah. Okay.
Leah, do you want to come
The reason why it's okay, what we're doing is a new bit which falls below the threshold. So the procurement Act threshold this year I think is 214,000 off the top of my head, including VAT. This is proposed to be for 95,531 according to the report. So at that point we can choose the rules.
Okay, any officer want to come in at all? You're very welcome to. No? Everyone seems all good. Well, Chief Exec says all good. Right, okay. Somebody moved that, did they? Darren, did you move it? Or Paul, you moved it. Is there a seconder? Joe, thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Beadle, seconded by Councillor Asher. All those in favour? Anyone against? That is carried. We now move on to page 133, which is the subject of the food waste service. It's over to you again, Darren.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, so I think we've mentioned once before, but the new simpler recycling rules put a statutory obligation on Harbour District Council for food delivery. The start date is before the new contract, so we need to seek a variation of the contract. So this report is to approve the commencement of a food waste collection service from the 3rd of November, aligning implementation with the confirmed delivery of the new the food waste vehicles, because non-food wouldn't be working on this. The Cabinet grant delegation to the Director of Communities and Wellbeing in the consultation with the the portfolio holder, myself, to agree and award a contract variation. And so, yeah, any more details I will pass over to Kat.
Okay, thanks for that, Darren. Kat, do you want to come in and make any comments at all?
Thank you, Chair. No, I think Councillor Woodywis has covered it really. It's a relatively simple report. This one, it's a mandatory requirement the government set out for us to collect food waste. The requirement is from April 2026, but they have added a caveat to that, which is or as soon as we can meet certain criteria, one of which is the delivery of vehicles. So the vehicles have been ordered, the vehicles are due to be delivered, and we have used those delivery dates to set the timescale for the commencement of the service. So we've got the caddies. They are currently in storage. They will be delivered prior to the commencement of the contract to households across the district, and then we will see what the take-up is. We will have lots of information, as you'd imagine, going out to residents in advance of that, so we're working on that at the moment. All of the usual things, we will be putting information out on social media, there will be bin hangers, lots of different ways for people to understand what's going to be happening. And obviously residents can also get in touch with us if they've got any queries. I think that covers it. Sure, thank you.
Just a question, if I may. With everything that's going on in the world and everything else, what happens if for some reason this delivery of the vehicles gets delayed? Where do we stand then with regard to reassignment of the start dates, etc.?
If the delivery dates move, we will move the commencement of the service, but we are not expecting the delivery to move now significantly. We understand that given the proximity now to November, that those vehicles are now in production. So I would have imagined that we would have been advised if there were going to be any significant slippages. Of course, there might be some slight movement on the delivery dates. We will keep members updated on that. We would hope not. We have added a little bit of leeway. So we've said the service to start from November. We're not expecting the vehicles to be delivered on the 1st of November because I think that would make me feel a bit more grey hairs to cover up there, I think. So we have added a bit of contingency, but we'll see how things progress. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Simon, yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As someone who remembers when we did this before, and what happened then, I went down the bottom of my garden yesterday and I found my caddy from last time. And I got it out and I gave it a wash down and I thought we could use this again. and I don't know how many people kept theirs, but yeah, I do remember it, and there was quite a lot of negative stuff. We didn't have social media like we do then, but around smells and having to deal with it and so on. So I'm really pleased to hear what Kat said about a comms plan using the luggage label system, because there's no better way than to get something to everyone when they go to get their bin back in. But in my view, is the earlier we start this, the better, in terms of saying this is going to be happening, this is how you can contact us for information, and so on. And I think, you know, comms and being out there and explaining to people how it works. Maybe we should get some feedback from, I know there's going to be other districts in the county that are starting earlier than us. We could get some feedback, hopefully some positive feedback from people that are doing it, that we could then include in our social media. But as I say, I do think comms, rolling it out, getting stuff out to parishes and community groups as well, because that's where it tends to come up at drop-ins that people go to. Oh, isn't this going to be awful? How are we going to manage it and all that? Well, we need to be really positive about it, because it is a very good thing to do for the environment, and to get this food waste out of the normal way it has to be disposed of. So there's a positive story to tell. I think if we go out of the way and explain it to residents, yes, it's a mandatory requirement, we've got to do it, but I think we should be positive about it, because there are a lot of benefits from doing this and getting this out of the waste stream. So yeah, the more publicity we do, the earlier we start, the better, in my view. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that I'm looking at Becky here. We have to start this early. We have to start it positively, and we have to keep the message going, because at the moment, you know, the more feed that goes into this, the more the people are aware. You know, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months till this happens, and you're feeding information to them. People are beginning to anticipate it. I, like you, Simon, remember the last time this was launched. I remember somebody standing up in council having to try and explain the way to resolve a problem when the lids didn't fit. They kept popping open. The trouble was, it was the caddy that had got to be kept in the kitchen that was popping open, and the recommendation to solve was put a house brick on it. So people had got their kitchen work surface with a little caddy on it and a house brick on top of it, which, to use an old phrase, went down like a lead balloon. It just didn't. People were absolutely furious with it, and before long, the negativity overtook everything. So I think the important thing is now we've got to make absolutely sure that the feed on this, and you're absolutely right what you say, you know, this is a requirement, it's mandatory, we've got to do it, but equally it's up to us now to make sure the feed to the community is positive, and importantly they know the dates, they know when it's happening, they know what the anticipation is, and you know, we can feed this out. We've got our own website, we've got our own feeds into the community, and we should be building on that. I think it's important, very important. Joe, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just to reiterate, that I have seen comments already on social media when the comms went out for other councils, you know, people asking the questions of when are Harbour doing this, or is this coming in Harbour? So I think the sooner we get that message out to say yes, it is coming in, and why and when would be quite good. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Joe. Darren, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, there was that BBC map that seemed to say that we hadn't responded. I asked officers and we had responded. Yeah. So the details are out there, just not published, unfortunately. I'd just like to stress that it is a great thing for the environment. So we're removing this waste from A, the incineration, so it's completely wasted once it's incinerated, and B, the small amount we still send to landfill, so we're avoiding that methane, and then it's actually being processed fairly locally for a change as well, so then obviously we'll get that local gas production. And unlike Simon, my caddy never found it to the bottom of the garden. I'm still actually using it, so on a daily basis. So that's how durable these things are. So, you know, so I can't remember how long ago we took that out of service, but I still use it on a daily basis. Yeah, and the handle's still there and everything. Brilliant. So yeah, I'd just like to move this report then.
Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Woodywis. Bring you in 1 second. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Knight. Before we go to a vote, Kat, do you want to come in?
Yes, just before we go to the vote, if I could just make a correction, Chair, through yourself. I just wanted to offer an apology. In the report, it provides the incorrect title for the portfolio holder, so apologies for that. Portfolio holder is Climate Change and Neighbourhood Services, so if that could be corrected, just important for the recommendation. So thank you, Chair.
No problem. You're not offended, Darren? No, you're okay. Anybody else want to come in at all? No? Okay, well, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Anyone against? That is carried unanimously. We now move on to page 142, which is housing enforcement, and it's corporate and wellbeing, so it's over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this report is to update some policies in light of some new legislation. So with the introduction of the Renters' Right Act, this places significantly expanded civil penalty framework and new duties on the Council to enforce a broader range of landlord obligations. These include new compliance requirements, enhanced penalties for repeat or serious non-compliance, and clearer expectations that enforcement activity is fair, consistent and proportionate. To meet these requirements, the Council must ensure its relevant policies are fully aligned to the new legislative framework. So we've currently got policies on housing enforcement policy, a minimum energy efficiency financial penalty policy and a smoke and carbon monoxide policy, and the proposal is to amalgamate these into one housing enforcement policy. And then additionally, it's proposed to revise the Council's housing enforcement civil penalty policy to take account of new duties contained within the Renters' Right Act 2025. Some of these elements come into effect on the 1st of May. Aligning the Council's policies with nationally recognised framework supports a consistent and defensible approach to enforcement, and it will reduce the risk of unfavourable outcomes to legal challenge and strengthens the Council's ability to meet its statutory duties under the Renters' Right Act.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody want to come in at all? Any comments on that? I think it's fairly straightforward. These are changes which we have to accept. Any other member want to come in at all? Okay, well, it has been moved by Councillor Beadle. Is there someone who would like to second it? Councillor Knight? Anyone else? No? Okay. All those in favour? Anyone against? That is carried. We'll now move on to page 241, which is the Welland Park project, a pavilion refurbishment and bowling green conversion, which I think is you, Joe. If you'd like to present this one, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm really pleased to see this come to Cabinet. So the report seeks approval for the Welland Park project, which comprises of the refurbishment of the disused pavilion and the conversion of the former bowling green into a multifunctional event space. The project aims to reactivate these dormant council assets to support corporate plan priorities, specifically community leadership and healthier lives. Approval is sought for the capital budget and the project scope and delegated authority to award the construction contract. And I'd just like to point out that we're looking to try and get this so it's open for November 26, and so that we're potentially for a Winter Wonderland event, which I think is quite exciting. And yeah, I think these have sat dormant for many years, and I think it is noticeable that they're not used, and it's such a shame. So it would be great if we can get this moving at last and make these improvements to Welland Park. We've already made a lot of improvements, and I think it has been noticed. So I think this will be like the icing on the cake, really. So yeah, I don't know if any officers want to add anything as well.
I think before I bring the officers in, I will say one thing, Joe. You've just touched on a point there. This has stood dormant for so many years. To be able to do something with it is so important, and I think also it's yet another opportunity to give back to the community, because our community is crying out for additional space to use, and obviously reworking and modernisation or upgrading of the actual pavilion is going to provide that, and to rework that bowling green, which has been again unused for so long. It's going to give another positive facility to the town of Market Harborough. So I think it is so important that we take the opportunity to look at this and to identify what it is, and it's another example of the fact that we are giving back to the community. We're making sure we're providing these services, and it's something we're doing right across the district. Only the other day I was in one of the villages, and it's one that we've identified £250,000 investment, and very simply put, without that investment, schemes that they have there would simply not go ahead. They would collapse. So I think again it's evidence that what we're doing is the right thing. So thanks for that. Officers, will the officers want to come in?
Just one point. Just in terms of value for money, bear in mind we're doing the one at Thurnby as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure Clive's already thought about this. Would there be any more efficiencies in tendering the two together, as they are both pavilions?
Good question.
That is being thought about literally as we speak.
Oh, well, they are then. Great minds think alike.
Well done.
We might save some money.
Really good.
We'll have ours done first, please, because ours came to the last one.
Joe, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, I also forgot to mention that obviously this will be for the whole community. It's not just going to be closed off.
No.
Us as a cabinet have discussed this before, and we want to make it of use for the whole community. So
I think it's something, as I say, that will be viewed so positively by the community. It's very important. Darren, do you want to come in? It's your ward, I think.
It's not my ward, it's Logan Ward.
Is it Logan?
It's Logan Ward indeed, but parks do come under me.
Logan.
So Joe and myself both share responsibilities. So yeah, I wholeheartedly endorse everything that's in this report, but if you recall, we've had conversations in the past, and I don't believe these plans go far enough for the Bowls Pavilion. I think without some fixed assets in there, it will drive up the costs of actually holding events there, which may then become a barrier to entry for some people to actually put things on there. So I'd just like to put that on the record, and hopefully we can push in. It's not too late.
Always worth consideration. Kat, do you want to come in?
Thank you. Yeah, completely take that on board. And I think, as you'll probably have noted from the report, that it only sort of covers indicative costings at the moment because we are working within a budget. We will absolutely seek to do the maximum amount that we can with the budget available. If I could just make another point, Chair, if that's okay, through yourself. In terms of this report, I just wanted to double check the recommendation seeks delegated authority to myself in consultation with the Section 151 officer and portfolio holder. Could I just check that Councillor Asher is happy that we specify that's yourself in consultation with there, if that's okay? Yeah, just because it doesn't explicitly state it.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you, Chair.
No problem at all. Anybody else want to come in at all? No? Okay. Well, someone want to move this? Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, I'm happy to move this.
Seconded by Councillor Darren Woodywis. So it's been moved and seconded. Last opportunity if anyone wants to say anything. No one does. So all those in favour? Anyone against? That is carried. I now move back to the front of the agenda, and it is any urgent business. I'm not aware of any urgent business. So on that note, thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you to anyone who's been watching online.
Thank you.